Not every hand that holds you is saving you from the fall. Sometimes it only keeps you from learning how to fly. They met at the edge of an invisible cliff, each carrying wounds still open. It wasn't passion. It was the grip of two trembling hands, more united by the fear of emptiness than by the desire to be together. He carried the weight of broken promises, she the invisible marks of years spent unseen. For a while they believed it was love, the conversations that stretched into the night, the smiles that filled the air of a small home, the silence that felt like peace. But beneath it all there was something hidden, like cracks under fresh paint on a wall. And the wind that would one day come was already circling outside. The beginning was like a patch hurriedly sown. The long talks and gentle gestures did not come from fullness, but from the urgency to cover the holes left by what had already gone. He needed peace, but only knew how to ask for it in the form of proof. She longed for security, but mistook it for permanence. And so they cared for each other more out of fear of losing than out of the desire to see the other whole. As days passed, the patch began to give way. Came the uncomfortable silences, the questions that were more accusations than curiosity. And behind every word grew an echo neither wanted to hear. There was something they could not find in each other, but only in a place they had not yet learned to seek. It was on an ordinary afternoon, with light entering faintly through the window, that she found a vase in the corner of the room. It was small, but had a thin crack, almost invisible, running from top to base. She picked it up and thought of gluing it, but something made her stop. In that moment, he entered the room and without looking at the vase, said he was tired. Not a tiredness of the body, but of a weight no rest could heal. The vase went back to the floor. And for a moment it seemed that its crack reflected theirs, something they had been trying to hold together, but that had been breaking for a long time. It was the first time the silence between them was not the absence of words, but the presence of a truth they didn't know how to touch. The end did not come with shouting. It came slowly, like the distant sound of something collapsing without hurry. They sat facing each other, and their gaze held for too long. There were 1,000 things to say, but all of them died in their throats. He knew he could not be what she was looking for. She knew she would not find in him what she lacked. The air felt heavier, as if at each breath was the last thread holding together what remained. When he stood up, the vase in the corner swayed slightly, but did not fall. And that small movement was enough for them both to understand. It wasn't the vase that was at risk. It was them. No hands reached out, and the silence closed the door. In the days that followed, absence did not arrive as a cold void, but as new air entering the house. There was no longer the anxious wait for the key in the door, nor the fear of conversations ending in accusations. It was strange, and at the same time light. It was in that silence they realized something that had never fit into words. Not everything that looks like love is meant to last. Some presences come only to show where it still hurts. And when they leave, they take with them the weight that no longer needs to be carried. The vase remained in the corner, still with its crack, but in the morning light, the fracture seemed less of a threat and more of a reminder that some things don't need to be fixed to remain whole. Time, with slow steps, began to teach what living together could not. She discovered her worth was not in being chosen, but in knowing how to choose. He understood that peace would not come from someone filling his emptiness, but from learning to walk with it until it became part of the ground beneath him. They walked alone for a while, but not broken, and the more whole they became, the more the past lost the weight of a wound, and became a scar. The vase remained there, in the same corner, keeping a crack that no longer threatened to split. It was like a silent reminder. Not every absence is a loss, and not every ending is defeat. Sometimes it's simply the space needed for something new to have room to enter. There are absences that weigh at the start and set you free in the end. Not everything that arrives is meant to stay, and not everything that leaves takes something from you. The vase in the corner stands there, whole in its fracture, like one who doesn't need to hide their story to stand firm. If someone ever leaves your life, don't run just to quiet the longing. Breathe. Look at the space that's left and ask yourself what it can hold now. Keep this phrase as a key. What God removes, He turns into ground for your next step. If this story found an echo in you, leave a single dot in the comments as a silent sign that you trust God's timing. And if you feel these words spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and share this message with someone who needs to hear this today.